Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty radical in the world of mental well-being. It's called acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT for short. And let me tell you, it flips some of the most basic rules of psychology on their head to offer a new path to a truly rich and meaningful life.
So let's start with a really powerful idea, that deep psychological suffering. It's a universal human experience. Yeah, this isn't something just for people with a formal diagnosis. It's actually a fundamental part of being human.
And if you want a number that really drives this home, think about this. The source material we're looking at today points out that about half of all suicides, they're not associated with any diagnosed mental disorder. That just shows you how widespread this quiet struggle really is.
So what's going on here? Well, it leads us to this huge idea we're exploring today, the happiness trap. The theory is that our whole culture has sold us a version of happiness that is seriously flawed. And the crazy part? The very things we do to try and be happy are what end up keeping us stuck. So let's figure out what this trap is, and more importantly, how to get out of it. Okay, here's our game plan. First, we're going to dig into why trying to find happiness so often backfires. Then, we'll get into the wild idea that trying to control our feelings is the real problem. After that, we'll build a whole new toolkit with 4 core skills. And finally, we'll see how to use those skills to build a life that's actually guided by what matters to you.
All right, let's tackle the problem head on. You know, our gut instinct whenever we feel pain is to just make it go away, right? But what if I told you that very instinct is exactly what's keeping us trapped?
This is the absolute core of ACT. The whole idea is that when we take a normal feeling, like anxiety, and we label it a symptom, we basically declare war on ourselves. And it's that constant battle, that endless struggle to get rid of our own inner experiences that can turn normal human pain into something chronic and debilitating. Okay, let's try a quick experiment right now. Seriously, for the next 10 seconds, whatever you do, do not think about your favorite ice cream. Don't picture it, don't imagine the taste, just don't think about it. Ready? Go. So, what happened? Yeah, I'm willing to bet you immediately got a big, clear picture of that ice cream. And this shows us something huge. The idea that we can control our inner world is pretty much an illusion. We just don't have an on-off switch for our thoughts and feelings. So, if grabbing for control is the problem, what in the world is the solution? Well, this is where ACT gets really practical. It's not about giving up, it's about changing our whole strategy. ACT gives us this amazing toolkit with 4 key skills to completely change our relationship with all that stuff going on inside our head. All right, let's treat this next part like a training session. We're going to walk through each of these 4 skills one by one. We'll start with something called diffusion. That's about unhooking from our thoughts. Then we'll move to acceptance, making room for our feelings. After that, we'll practice contact with the present moment. And finally, we'll connect with what's called the observing self. Our first skill is cognitive diffusion. See, most of the time, we're living in a state of fusion. Our mind says, I'm a failure, and boom, we treat it like it's a fact written in stone. We're completely tangled up in it. Diffusion is the skill of just creating a little space. It's about stepping back and seeing that thought for what it really is. Just a bunch of words, a picture in your head. You learn to look at your thoughts instead of from them.
And you know what's really cool about this is how simple and honestly kind of playful these techniques can be. So instead of just thinking, I'm a loser, you practice saying, I'm having the thought that I'm a loser. Or you could imagine that thought being sung to the tune of Happy Birthday. The point isn't to make the thought vanish. It's just to take away its power to boss you around. Okay, for our second skill, acceptance. There is this fantastic metaphor I want you to picture. Imagine you are the captain of a ship. And down below the deck, there's this huge mob of demons. And these demons are all your painful thoughts, feelings, and memories. Now, as long as you just drift around in circles, the demons stay pretty quiet. But the second you pick a destination, a life that actually matters to you, and you start steering toward it, they come swarming up onto the deck. They're loud, they're scary, they're threatening you, so you have a choice, right? You can stay stuck out at sea to keep them quiet, or you can keep steering toward what matters even with all of them on deck. And this is so important. Acceptance does not mean you like the demons. It just means you're willing to let them be there. You realize they can't actually hurt you, they just make a lot of noise. Their only real power comes from you believing their threats and changing course because of them. Acceptance is being willing to feel discomfort so you can move your life in a direction you care about. Our third skill is all about getting grounded in the present moment. Because when our mind is off worrying about the future or replaying the past, we're not really steering the ship, are we?
So here's a super simple technique to drop anchor in the here and now. Just pause and silently notice 5 things you can see, then 5 things you can hear, and finally, 5 things you can feel. It's amazing how quickly that brings you back.
And our fourth and final skill is about connecting with what ACT calls the observing self. And this metaphor says it all, really. You aren't the storm of anxiety. You're not the dark clouds of sadness. You are the sky. And all that other stuff, it's just the weather. And the weather is always changing, but it can never, ever harm the sky. That part of you that just notices, it's always there and it's always safe.
Okay, so we've got this amazing new toolkit: diffusion, acceptance, presence, and the observing self. But, skills are only as good as what you're using them for. So what's the point? Well, that's where the next crucial piece of ACT comes in: getting crystal clear on your values. And we have to make a really important distinction here between goals and values. Think of it like this. Goals are destinations on a map, things you can reach and check off a list. But values are like a compass direction. You can't ever finish being a loving partner or complete being creative. Values are all about how you want to travel through life day by day, moment by moment. So ACT invites us to ask these really big questions. Not what society says you should want, not what your family wants for you, but deep down, if nothing was holding you back, what really, truly matters to you? What kind of person do you want to be? This is how you find that land you want to steer your ship toward. And that brings us to the final piece of this whole puzzle. Once you've got your skills and you know your compass direction, well, there's only one thing left to do. You have to start steering. And that's what ACT calls committed action. Now, this isn't about making some huge, dramatic gesture. It's about taking small, consistent steps in the direction your values are pointing. And a tool like this can be so helpful. You define a small goal, you connect it to why it's meaningful to you, and then, and this is the game changer, you consciously decide what uncomfortable demons you're willing to make room for to take that step. And that right there, that's the whole punchline. The goal of acceptance and commitment therapy is not to feel happy all the time. The goal is to get good at feeling the whole range of human emotions, so you're no longer trapped by the fight against them. It's about building a life that is so meaningful to you that you're willing to feel whatever you need to feel in order to live it. So we'll leave you with this final thought. Your demons, all those difficult thoughts and feelings, they're coming along for the ride. That's a given. That's part of being human. The only real question left is, where are you going to steer your ship? Instead of fighting a war below deck, you can simply choose a destination that matters and start sailing.